I think it's a misconception to think that people with optimism, positive mindset, resilience, like they just wake up that way every day. I mean, there are many times in our lives where you wake up and you're like, oh my God, this sucks. I don't want to do any of these things today. I am tired of this. I don't want to do this. I feel like it's never going to happen. I'm never going to win. And the key is to shorten the cycle of that. The cycle has to you have to get it out. You have to acknowledge it. It's a true, authentic feeling that I know I have, and I don't have it very long. I mean, I do get it, and that's when I usually pray first because I can't control. And the second thing I do is if it's really overwhelming, then I start to write it down and I start to go through my love, impact, faith, and energy, and I start prioritizing what can I control and what are the action steps I can start doing, and I get out of the way because this brain of ours will take us down some horrible paths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that strategy. That's I do the same thing. I'm a big believer in whenever we're overwhelmed, the simple act of sitting down with a blank piece of paper and writing down everything you're stressed about will do two things. One, it articulates it for you so that you can actually kind of look at it and go, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Two, my experience has been when I write it down, I very rarely come up with as many things as I thought there were. In other words, they feel like there's more and they're bigger when they're just bouncing around in your head. And then when you get them out on paper, you're like, oh, is that all it is? Okay. So what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? Right. And what can I not do anything about? So I'm going to put that to the side. So it's a super practical and very powerful thing that people can do.
You also a lot of times end up laughing at it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you write it down, you have the ability to have humor with your own challenges. And I think people take that for granted. Writing something down. I mean, I'm Italian and I have lots of great Italian family members. And in that culture, there's a lot of worry. A lot of my Italian friends worry about everything. And, what's funny is when you start to walk a worrier through what they're worried about, they will laugh at themselves. Mm-hmm. They will actually say, oh, okay, that's ridiculous. And again, walking through a worrier through the worry is something that we've had to do our own selves, because I can tell you, I guarantee, Mark, you were worried about all your surgeries and you were worried about the end result, but you couldn't control it. So you work through it.
Right. And you then, I think we do that for two reasons. One, it saves us the mental anguish, right? There's a great quote from somebody about, most of the problems of my life never actually happened. That's a paraphrase, but the idea is like most of my perceived challenges were not actually even there. I just worried about them in advance and then they didn't happen. But the other thing that happens is if you're not engaging in that, then that frees up the mental space and some energy, because we usually end up at the end of that worry a little more tired and a little more worn out than we were before. And now all of a sudden I have those resources available to work on the things that I can, which incidentally, if I don't address those things, might become worries in the future, right? I didn't deal with that thing, so now it's become a problem. So there's so much value in doing that. And one of the things, Scott, that jumped to my mind when you talked about, culture and worry and, you talked about Italians. I live in a region where a lot of Acadians and French Catholics live in our area. My wife is one, and I'm immersed in that culture as well. Similar thing, lots of worry and lots of. I don't think this is a cultural thing. I think it's cultural, at least North American culture, Western culture. We have this idea that we've associated in our world worry and care. So in other words, when someone wants to express that they care about you, they will often express that in terms of, I was worried about you, at the other day, because I knew you were going through this thing and I was worried about you. And I think we need to separate that association. We need to break that association, because I can't tell you the number of times people have said that. Yeah, certainly for me when I was going through my surgeries and things about, oh, we were so worried about you. We were so, and I thought that did nothing for me, right? Your worry had zero positive impact on me. All it did was torture you, right? So you wasted a bunch of energy worrying about me. And what you wanted to say is you cared about me, which is kind. It's nice. But like, unless that worry expresses itself in some sort of action of caring, then all that's happened is you've suffered and I haven't benefited. So rather than say, I'm worried about you, let's care for somebody and let go of the worry and say, well, I've done my part to do what I can do to support that person. And now I hand it over to them or to God or whatever our faith background might be.
Yeah. How about action? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're truly worried about somebody, the key is take action. It's not about worry. I love Dr. Kevin Oko says this. If you never heard him, he's great to listen to. He says, worry is praying for what you don't want. And when you're visualizing the result you don't want, you're actually negatively visualizing things and focusing on the wrong thing over and over and over again. Focusing on what you do want is what you have to reframe that to immediately. So, I write it on, I've been in the financial services industry for 22 years and 21 years, somewhere around there. And now it's just adding up. But I used to write down, worry is praying for what you don't want on a sticky note. And I would say, stick this on your computer every time you go in to look at your accounts or you go in, because you are genuinely building this world where everything goes wrong. And nobody can help you in that world. Your kids can't help you. Your family can't help you. Your mom and dad can't help you. You're building a world of just worry and sadness, and I can't help you there. So, I do like to focus on reframing worry to action, and I also talk about empathy with action because, so many people today have this deep empathy, but empathy isn't just listening and feeling what someone's going through. At a certain point in time, if someone's really going through something challenging, we should start to think about how we may be able to make a difference in their lives. Something as simple as, hey, Mark, I got a house that you know what, you can come stay in, and it's going to be a challenge for all of us, but we love you and we want you to be a part of our family. And if it gets you the heart and lungs you need, then you got it. Or, you know what, your family is back home and mom's probably struggling to feed the other 3 boys. And so maybe I'm just going to make some dinner and drop it off at the house. Like, this is empathy with action. Like, now it's actually has some legs to it,
Yeah, not 100%. Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what some amazing friends and family members did, right? They're like, okay, well, what can we do? Not, and they, they prayed for us as well, which I absolutely appreciate, and I believe in the power of prayer. But
it's action.
That's action.
Action.
That's action as well, right? Yeah, absolutely. Some sent, cards just saying, hey, we're thinking about you. We're, that's action, and it meant something. And we put those cards on the wall of my hospital room. But to the well-intentioned folks who were just kind of like sitting there stewing, yeah, you're not helping me and you're hurting yourself, right? And so, yeah, I very often will chat with my wife about something and say, well, I'm not worried about it. And not because I don't care, right? But either I'm going to do what I can do, or I'm going to say, I hope that works out and move on to what I can do something about.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder to all of us. And, I'm thinking about things right now that, are people I know that are going through something or challenges that maybe I haven't had action on. So when we talk about these things, I think it's important for everybody that's listening to understand that there's no perfection in this world. It is completely the opposite. And part of the reason that we're able to talk about it and recognize it is because we failed at it before in our lives. And so it's something we recognize and start to apply on a different basis. And so, I think that I was prone to be focused on what I couldn't control. And I've worked really hard at self-talk and focus and reprioritization, and maybe several of the guideposts throughout my life, charting that course in chaos, and bringing that way to my life.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.